How do I stand out in a time where nothing really impresses anybody?
Well, you have to have a moment in real time.
DIY.
Donald Glover, better known as Childish Gambino, had an interview with GQ magazine, and he was talking about all of his different iconic roles that he has played as an actor, the creation of probably one of his most popular songs, definitely one of his most popular music videos is Childish Gambino in This Is America.
This is America. You know, time is the oven that makes something special, but we did a lot of work. I had that idea like 3 years before, and I told Hero the idea. He's like, man, I want to do that. He's like, I really want to do that. And I was like, cool. And I had the song. And I swear to God, like it started as the idea for the song started as a joke. To be completely honest, like This Is America, like that was all we had was like that.
For those of you that write songs, how many times have you had an idea that you was like, man, I don't think I'm ready to release on this, but I'm gonna put this in my back pocket? And he was saying that he had this idea sonically and visually for almost 3 years before it actually was put into action.
Don't got you slipping now. Look how I'm living now.
And it started as a Drake diss.
Mr. Gambino, why did This Is America start off as a Drake diss? that by far was probably the most random shit I heard all week long.
Be honest. It's like I was like as like a funny way of like doing it, but then I was like, this shit sounds kind of hard though, you know. So I was like, let me play with it. So we just had that for a long time. I told Hero the idea, and he was like, oh, let's do it.
Could you imagine if that was a Drake diss? Like how little legs it probably would have had. It's interesting when artists make decisions and pull back off of them. If this would have been a diss song, I feel like so many of the folks that saw this song as being kind of like a song of the time, when this song came out, there was all kind of protests. It was a very hectic time in America. But if you imagine this being a diss song for Drake, that song does this. Childish Gambino releases a diss song about Drake. Childish Gambino releases a diss song about Childish Gambino said this, and then it just says, and just fizzles out. But I feel like his decision to pull back on this and then involve all the people he did is probably what ultimately led to its success being bigger for a longer period of time.
And honestly, we studied Thriller for a long time because I was like, how do you make people care about anything anymore? There's just so much shit.
The internet is an amazing place, but sometimes the internet sucks the life out of ideas. There are certain artists who I think that by their own nature, Childish is one of them, Tyler's one of them, Kendrick's one of them. It doesn't matter what era you put them in. They will figure out how to talk to the pulse of the people, but still say something in a way that you've probably never heard it before, or present it in a way that's like, damn, I never would have thought about approaching it that way. They know how to stand out. They are outliers no matter what era you put them in. But asking this question is something that I feel like true artists care about. How do I stand out in a time where nothing really impresses anybody?
Well, you have to have a moment in real time, which was like SNL, which like Fam and Chad, Wolf and Rothstein, like we're like, okay, we're going to do this SNL thing.
So the first step is you have to do something in real time, which was the importance of doing this SNL performance, which those SNL performances are literally just like the skits, they're shot live. So in doing this in real time, that has something that feels like there's a level of novelty to it. There's a level of, I can't predict what's going to happen next. I can't fast forward this like I can do with everything else on the internet. I have to enjoy this moment as it is in real time.
Also like the feeling of like what was happening at the time where I was like, oh, it informed, like because, you know, of all the uprisings and riots that were happening, like it really informed like my writing and stuff. And then I was like, oh, I really, you know, I was like having sessions with like, you know, Thug and all these people, and I was like, hey, would you want to get on that? And I was like, you know, like making it like a We Are the World, like for trap.
The idea of this being like a We Are the World. Childish Gambino said he wanted to make something like that, We Are the World, but like for trap. And it literally had everybody that was relevant within trap music at that time. It had 21 Savage, it had Young Thug. Second part of this is what he was talking about is that there's an importance to also have awareness of what the time period is and where people's minds are, where their energy is at.
To me, culture is just compression of information. So I was like, all of it just needs to be compressed into this moment. So what was happening needed to feel like it could only be happening right now.
Doing a performance in real time, having awareness of what's going on in the time so it's relevant, and a music video that can only be shot in that era. This song doesn't hold as much weight if you release it today. It's hard, it's crazy. But at the time, like you said, with the uprising, the riots, and the protests, that song spoke to a lot of people.
We shot it on film that was deliberate. Like, we were like, oh, 2 takes. Like, kind of literally 1 shot. Like, we were like, let's just do it like 2, because it's really 3 shots. It's like that first half, that second half, and then the running. We were like, it needed to feel continuous because it needed to feel like a moment, because moments, I feel like the internet kind of robs moments.
The internet robs moments, doesn't it ever? I guess that's part of the genius of why it also resonated with a lot of people, in that if you took one clip of him doing that little dance that he was doing, that embodies pretty much the energy of that entire continuous scene. So it wasn't like one individual scene taken out of context. Like, what's the name of what's the song where the dude is on the ground and he's like, and they like trying to resuscitate him, and he's in the blue bubble jacket, and they bring him back to life. Like, it's that those moments the internet takes, they meme it to death, and it loses all kind of context.
It's interesting that it worked. We studied how that became iconic, and I was like, oh, well, you have to do a lot of things the first time, and I was like, but Thriller was like a big important part. Multidisciplinary, like, people, I call it a vent. You need a vent. You need some steam to like let something off. Stevie Wonder, amazing, genius, but people are like, but he's blind. So that's the vent. You know, like, same thing with Prince. He's like, oh, but he's short.
This to me is amplified. This idea of people needing a vent almost to accept the genius that is in front of them. I feel like it's amplified with internet culture and the internet era, in that people almost have to find that flaw to even give you any kind of props. I used to think it was something that was like a personal attack when I would get around certain people and they would feel threatened by the idea of me being a DIYer before it even had a name. And I noticed that when I got in certain rooms where people did only one of those things, they felt very threatened, because in their mind, they were like, well, what the hell do you need me here for if you could do all of that?
Like, there's something where, you know, you want to give people a vent to be able to, and I knew that wasn't gonna be easy. But also I think that there's an older generation. I think a lot of things have changed because it used to be about access. If you had access to be able to make stuff and then you happened to be good, it was different. Now everyone has access, and it's way easier to make all these things.
So this idea that people cannot perform at a high level with multiple hats, be multifaceted, is in a lot of ways a very old school way of thinking. And it's not completely inaccurate for different eras in which there wasn't as much accessibility to chord generators. What the hell are we talking about? There wasn't as much accessibility to complete hardware stations that can now be installed as software within your computer. Those things weren't there, but that's just a natural part of the evolution.
We're always racing towards very good ideas. That's all it matters at the end of the day. And I think the idea of like this person not being great at other stuff is an old idea of just like, yeah, Elvis couldn't be a great necessarily actor necessarily because he was focusing so much. Making music took a lot more, but now it's like all that stuff is happening, all those things are the same anyway. So I feel like, yeah, like somebody had to do it, and it wasn't like I was like, I'm the one to do it. I think I honestly I didn't want to stop doing that other stuff. It was like way too much fun. And I had learned like, yo, if you're like living for other people, you're probably gonna end up being sad, which is like, what's the point?
That part, man, I tip my hat off to Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, because he inspires me on levels that I didn't even recognize how much he inspires me. I look at folks like himself and they remind me that I'm not crazy for wanting to do things that are outside of what's expected of me. I look at folks like him as the proof that wearing multiple hats, that being a DIYer can not only be something that is possible, but it's something that can be done at a high level, and it's something that can actually shift whatever culture that we are involved in. I look at folks like that and I know it's possible, because I say, if they are able to do that, why the hell am I not able to do the things that I set out to do in front of me? And we're living in an era where there are tools in front of us that make that so much easier to do. Most people are going to discourage you from doing all these different things, but most people who are discouraging you have never done even 2 out of the 5. It's like trying to explain a sport to someone who's never played it. DIY. DIYers, if you enjoyed this content, make sure that you hit the like button and maybe even consider subscribing. Come on, man. Don't be greedy. Peace.